The NFL draft is just a few more sleeps away, and although there is plenty of excitement surrounding what the Eagles will do at 25, or more interestingly, their pair of second round picks, there is also plenty of interest surrounding what happens on day 3 of the NFL draft, where sleepers become stars and surprises happen at each and every corner. In this video, we're going to take you through the sleepers and draft crushes available on day 3. While they don't have a 7th round pick, there are a couple of names in here who could be available at the bottom of the draft, and if we've come to know anything, is don't ever write off a Howie Roseman trade or two. But before we get into the heart of today's video, guys, make sure you leave a like if you're into this sort of content, subscribe if you're an Eagles fan, join one of the fastest growing communities on YouTube. We want to build the biggest, most passionate Eagles fan base out there. We need your help to do it. Don't forget, you can view daily Philadelphia sports content from myself and all of our writers at phillysportsnetwork.com. We're going to kick things off with a receiver I'm a little biased towards, and when it comes to Penny Hart, I will always have a soft spot, because when I finally got my hands on a copy of NCAA 14 over here in the UK, my first save was with Georgia State, and Penny Hart was simply incredible. Because of that, I followed his progress very closely, and posting 1,121 yards and 8 touchdowns in 2017, Hart followed up his successful campaign with a slightly less productive 2018, although showed plenty of versatility. His ability to change speed and make clean and concise cuts on deep routes make him a threat from anywhere on the field. He's extremely quick getting off the line of scrimmage and will soak up the sun if given the space to do so. The only real drawback I can see is that he sometimes lacks the desired play strength, and he only stands at 5'8", 180 pounds. His pro day measurables weren't that much more impressive either, and to consistently beat NFL defensive backs, there will be some concerns here. As a result, though, he relies on his agility, which won't always be enough when asked to drive vertically. Hart projects to be a perfect slot receiver at the NFL level, and given that the Eagles have no idea what the long-term future has in store for Nelson Agholor, grooming a long-term replacement could be the perfect plan, and Penny Hart may be the ultimate underdog to be just that man. Andy Isabella is another name that comes to mind, but he could be off the board as early as round 4, and the Eagles tend to have a habit of looking at bigger slot guys. We're talking AJ Brown and Jalen Hurd, who could also be on this list out of Baylor. But for a player who can eat up space and be effective on sweeps and screens, if you're talking bang for your buck and value in the later rounds of this year's NFL draft, then Penny Hart could be sitting pretty in the 5th round and below. Next up on this list is a hidden gem you'll hear linked to the Eagles for the most obvious of reasons. He's dressed in North Dakota State Bison colors. Will he be dressed in midnight green? It's a quarterback who followed on where Carson Wentz left off, and that is the dual threat man known as Easton Stick. Now, there are some concerns here. He's nowhere near as accurate as Carson Wentz was, completing 61% of his passes, and at the FCS level, that will have scouts guessing, especially when someone like Brett Ripien could be available in this same range. But this is a true developmental talent, and the Bison offense does carry many of the same attributes that Doug Peterson's does, especially considering that Carson Wentz is helping to shape that and see some of the plays he ran during college. With familiarity with Wentz being an absolute focal point, why not groom the next backup by rekindling some deja vu? Standing at 6'2", 221 pounds, he doesn't have the same size that Carson Wentz does, but this is a guy that threw for an average of 9.8 yards per pass last season, who slung it down deep, had 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and at the end of the day, the Eagles just need a quarterback 3. They already have Luis Perez from the Alliance of American Football. This isn't a guy they want to come in and immediately challenge to back up Carson Wentz, but more of a developmental arm, someone that can work with the Eagles coaching staff under Wentz, a former mentor and close friend of his, and of course Nate Sudfeld, who is the latest on that conveyor belt. So to me, I feel like Easton Stick makes a lot of sense. My heart would say Brett Ripien, given his accuracy and game managing technique that's very likening to what we see in Nick Foles, but I feel that Easton Stick just brings that familiarity. There'd be no hesitation in fitting right in, and the immediate chemistry with Carson Wentz is a no-brainer if on the board in the 6th round. Next up on this list is a favourite sleeper of many, and one that actually ranked 4th in my power ranking of the top 10 running backs who best fit the Eagles in this year's draft. It's Nebraska's Divine Zeke, who will wear down defenders as the game progresses, and because there's such little wear on the tyre, given that he's only carried the ball 20 plus times on 7 occasions during his career, this could be a real bargain bin purchase for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's laterally rapid, maintains a low centre of gravity, and is able to really explode in short yardage situations, which is exactly what the Eagles could be looking for. He's got the right mentality to be efficient in pass protection, and his acceleration is among the best in this year's class. Long speed can hurt a Zeke, though he's not the biggest deep burner of this group, but while turning the corner, this isn't a worry. The Eagles just need someone who can hit the hole decisively, can turn the corner with ease, and worry about those one-on-one matchups, which Ezekbo is more than elusive enough to win if head-to-head with a safety. Ezekbo would eventually replace the role that Wendell Smallwood currently has in this case, and would cost the Eagles very little. He's got all the right tools in the box, it's just a case of developing those into a hard-nosed runner and a more well-rounded prospect, and that's something that Juice Staley would have a blast doing. This is someone that will get to the outside quickly, that runs with effort, that's quite powerful, but more than anything, he's patient. He's not just going to run into his blocks, he's going to wait perfectly for those lanes to set up, and that's all the Eagles need from a perfect complement to Jordan Howard. So if they don't go for a Darrell Henderson, if they don't go for Josh Jacobs, or even someone in the mid-rounds of the draft, Devine Ezekbo could be a monumentally valuable pickup in the 6th round or below. So there are two potential players I would put on this video. One was David Long, but I feel like after featuring him in yesterday's mock, I can't go too overboard and give you guys the same regurgitated content. So I dove into the Draft Crush draw and I picked out Maryland's Trey Watson, who is an almost polar opposite to what we see with David Long. So Long is a man who flies around the field sideline to sideline, penetrating backfields and recording a ridiculous amount of tackles, but you put him in a zone coverage situation and he may not be the best man to rely on given his stiff tackling angles. However, Trey Watson of Maryland has racked up 100 tackles plus in both campaigns in which he started 11 games, and last year he had 5 interceptions. Sound like a linebacker, you know? If you're thinking Jordan Hicks, you may be along the right line. His production last year actually earned him the reputation as a first-team All-Big Ten honoree, and he also led the Big Ten in tackles, which says a lot given the amount of solid defensive playmakers within the conference. At 6'2", 236 pounds, Watson doesn't move anywhere near as fluidly as David Long. He's not explosive like David Long, and he's not going to be as penetrative as David Long. But this is a man that if you ask him to sit back, has got an extraordinarily high football IQ, can read and diagnose the player ahead of him and move his body accordingly. Doesn't mean he's not willing to get down and dirty in the run. He's more than happy to get to the bottom of the pile and dive in head first to make a big stop. He may not be able to run with running backs when they get to the open field, but if you're asking someone to watch the middle, keep an eye on those slants and pertain those tight ends that are going to be brisky at the next level, this is someone that has that intelligence. And blitzing may not be his A game, but he can get into the backfield, he can get side to side and seal the edge with ease. This is someone that will do everything for you. He can still get in pursuit and has great burst to come down on blitz looks. I think he'd be more suited to moving inside if I'm brutally honest, but that's not to say he can't be suited as an outside linebacker. And the wherewithal to sit in a defensive zone, play with the tenacity needed to stand out, and after experiencing the turmoil and heartbreak at Maryland, has come through adversity and posted an incredible season in spite of all of that. So this is a high character guy that's going to want to play for all of the right reasons, and more than anything, possesses a high football level of intelligence, which would be massively beneficial to a team that likes sitting linebackers behind the ball and letting their pass rush run riot. And we're going to close off this video with one of the ultimate sleepers. If I tell you this man is 6'8" and runs a 4.67 40-yard dash, this is a former basketball player that can play tight end and wide receiver, a true small school sleeper. We're talking Donald Parham out of Stetson, 6'8", 243 pounds, and he's got ridiculous height and size with even more scary room to add on to that. He had 1,300 receiving yards during his final season and 13 touchdowns, and he's got great functional strength when it comes to blocking. Now there's gonna be concerns about his route running. He's nowhere near as agile or as nimble as some of the smaller tight ends or even the NFL tight ends, but if you want a red zone weapon on a fade route, why not spend a 6th or 7th round pick on a player who is 6'8", has an unbelievable catch radius and can oddly get released like a receiver and leverage nicely. That massive wingspan doesn't just come into play for plucking balls out of the air. This is a fantastic stalk blocker who can just dominate through the stem of the route, because what defensive back is going to throw him off the middle of a break-in route? It's certainly not one that I can name. Now, is Donald Parham going to be the next Jimmy Graham who's 6'7"? I don't think so. But with a 6th round pick, why not take a risk? And why not take a developmental shot on someone who you would love to exploit the seam with? And given that the Eagles love those 13 personnel sets, they love wreaking havoc underneath and opening up the rest of the offense for their receivers to thrive, then why not take a chance? I mean, imagine Dallas got Zach Ertz, Donald Parham, and then someone like Alshon Jeffrey on the outside. It would just be a ridiculous set to imagine, and for me, it would be very interesting to see how he pans out at the next level. But who do you guys want to see the Eagles draft in the late rounds of this year's NFL draft? Let me know in the comments down below, and be sure to subscribe, hit that like button if you're new around here, and don't forget, tomorrow we're going to have one more episode of the Outside Insider podcast and my top 5 NFL draft crushes, all before the big event kicks off on Nashville in Thursday. So from myself, Liam Jenkins, you can follow me on Twitter at LiamJenkins21. I'll see you next time.